Good morning, everyone. My name is Shupeng Zhu. I'm a research scientist from the Advanced Power and Energy program at UC Irvine. Today, my topic is how decarbonization in California could lead to more equitable air quality. As the fifth economy in the world, California is facing a series of challenges imposed by climate change, including drought, wildfire, and degraded air quality. Concerns over the damages brought by air quality and climate change are further exacerbated by the disproportionate share both of these burdens imposed on socially vulnerable populations. Thus, California has established commitments requiring reductions in emissions of greenhouse gas, or GHG. B5018 requires the state to reach carbon neutrality no later than 2045, as shown on the lower right figure. As GHG are often co-emitted with various pollutant species, shift to low-carbon technologies and fuels to meet future climate targets will further reduce regional air pollutant concentration. The up-middle figure here shows how California has managed to reduce GHG emissions in the past 2 decades while still maintaining strong economic and population growth. The upper right figure shows the current composition of GHG emissions in California. The transportation and industrial sector contributed most of the GHG emissions in 2019. The environmental justice movement in the United States dates back to the later 1970s, when communities, activism, and scholarship drew attention to the disproportionate setting of hazardous waste facilities in low-income minority communities. Subsequent research has documented striking inequality in the cumulative exposure of low-income and racial minority communities to many forms of pollution, in addition to other social stressors. Over the past 50 years, remarkable improvements in environmental equality have been achieved under the Clean Air Act. However, some low-income communities still bear a disproportionate burden of persistent environmental harm. The right figure here shows the population-weighted PM2.5 exposure of different ethnic groups. We can see minority groups suffers a much higher exposure level compared to the white population. To better identify California communities that are most affected by any source of pollution, and where people are often especially vulnerable to pollution's effects, the California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment has developed an indexing system to rank the vulnerability of communities to pollution. 4 different factors are assessed at the census tract level, including exposure, environmental effects, sensitivity population, and socioeconomic factor. The communities with the highest 25% environmental index are considered environmental disadvantaged communities, or DAC, and this system is called a CalInfo screen. Based on our previous discussion, we can see a meaningful connection between local air pollution exposure, environmental justice, and policies that aims to mitigate climate change. However, it is not easy to evaluate the effectiveness of different policies in improving environmental equality, as they might result in similar or distinct figures with different benefit distributions. So a more universal or effective metric is needed to optimize mitigation pathways while improving environmental justice. To address this issue, we have tried to compare per capita benefit for DAC with the overall average in our past studies, which provides some preliminary judgment if the policy is more beneficial to the DAC group or not. However, this method lost most detail regarding the benefit actual distribution. To better capture the character of the policy effectiveness in addressing environmental justice, we have adopted a new metric in this study, which is called the SILT index. The SILT index is first proposed by Professor Daniel Sills in the 1970s as an indicator of tax progressivity. It measures the distribution equality using the Lorenz curve, as shown in the right figure. In our application, the horizontal axis measures the rank of environmental justice status of each community, with the highest score for more disadvantaged communities. The vertical axis marks the cumulative share of environmental benefits from the mitigation policy. This index makes it possible to focus only on the shape of the benefit distribution by normalize the absolute value of the benefit. A larger sales index would indicate more benefits toward disadvantaged communities, while a negative sales index would mean the environmental justice is degraded after policy application. The following analysis would provide one preliminary demonstration of this index, along with a cumulative policy cost-saving analysis for long-term climate pathways. Here, 3 decarbonization pathways generated by the E3 pathway model are considered in this study, including a reference scenario that only meets the air quality mitigation while not the climate goals, and 2 other decarbonization scenarios that meet the 40-80 GHG reduction goals. And the key trade-off between these 2 scenarios are the use of electrification and renewable gas fuels to decarbonize residential and commercial buildings. In a high building electrification or HBE scenario, we assume a complete replacement of natural gas powered appliances by electronic device. While the no building electrification or NBE scenario will reserve current natural gas infrastructure and replace the source of natural gas with renewable gas fuel, such as the biomethane and hydrogen. Other key difference comes from the penetration of electricity and fuel cell trucks. The HBE scenario only requires a median level of penetration, while the NBE requires a higher level of penetration. The up left figure demonstrated the different technology pathways used for the HBE and NBE scenario. While they are showing some key renewable infrastructure, the HBE scenario more heavily rely on the electronic grid, while the NBE benefit more from natural gas pipelines and storage facilities. While keeping the same amount of GHG emission, the NBE has more GHG attributed to the building sector, while the HBE emits more on the transportation sector, as shown in this figure. The cost relative to the reference scenario are also higher for the NBE than HBE, as presented here. There are also 2 different industrial learning curves assumed to approach the NBE pathway, where a more conservative implementation would result in a more expensive budget. However, even with the optimized assumption, the NBE is still 24% more costly than HBE scenario. To assess the air quality benefit from this decarbonization pathway, we first convert the GHG reduction into air pollutant emission reduction and apply the emission projection using the smoke based on the CARB 2012 inventory. The right figure here shows the resulting criteria pollutant reduction of both pathways compared to the reference case. We found HBE results in larger emission reduction for all pollutants except for ammonia. Then annual simulations are conducted for the year 2050 using emission projection from these two alternative scenarios based on the CMAS 5.2. The subpart 07 is used for chemical process, and the 2012 meteorology data is used for meteorology drives without considering additional climate change impacts. The reference case results is shown here, with the delta concentration difference from both the HBE and MBE here. In general, HBE leads to a 50% more exposure reduction for population-weighted concentration of PM2.5 compared to the MBE scenario, with a much higher reduction of the South Coast or SoCap region. However, the MBE shows a more balanced PM2.5 reduction between the SoCap and the San Joaquin Valley. The additional health benefit gain from those two climate scenarios compared to the reference case was estimated using the band map. Then a linear interpolation is assumed to estimate the accumulated health benefit between, also this is done for the year 2050, and then a linear interpolation is assumed to estimate the cumulative health benefit between 2020 and 2050 for preliminary analysis. Compared to the MBE scenario, HBE results in 60% more health benefit in 2050 and 27% more for accumulative benefits. The two right map here compares the health benefit spatial allocation in the year 2050 between two scenarios. The DAC community are outlined with a black boundary. And as we can see, their spatial distribution is rather similar between these two scenarios, while the highlighted region here shows higher health benefit in the HBE, and most of them are not within the disadvantaged communities. More details are revealed in the following analysis. Although the HBE provides more net health benefits, the MBE scenario results in a preferable benefit allocation that improves overall equality. Compared to the HBE scenario, the MBE has more health benefit allocated to the DACs, although this only by 0.4%, and both of the allocation to the DAC are larger than 25%, which means the equality would be improved compared to the reference case. Our results on the yield index reveals a similar conclusion, with the MBE leads by 0.6% in the overall distribution compared to the HBE. Also, both scenarios show a positive yield index, which indicates a net improvement in environmental equality. The two right plots shows the Lorenz curve used to calculate the yield index, with the median household income marked using a color map. We can see a strong correlation between household income and environmental vulnerability. Communities with high income are rarely observed in the disadvantaged community regions. Finally, a cost-saving assessment is conducted for those two scenarios. After deducting the total cost for implementing those pathways, both climate scenarios show significant net benefit. For the HBE, the accumulated net benefits are more than 600 billion, while the MBA also results in net benefit between 200 and 400 billion. Here we assume the costs to each individual are equally distributed across the California population, and the mitigation cost for each census check is then estimated by calculating the sum of individual costs within each census check. Considering both the mitigation cost and the health benefit allocation, we conclude that about 78% population is receiving net benefit under the HBE scenario, and about 49 to 66% for the MBE. Percentages of census check with net benefit are even higher, and moreover, more than 90% of the DAC benefits from the HBE at the census check level, while for MBE it's between 75% to 87%. Those bottom figure here shows the mitigation cost per life saved from the PM2.5 improvements alone. Almost every community under the HBE scenario has a mitigation cost below the value of statistical life, or VSL. The VSL means the potential willingness to pay for a statistical person to prevent its premature death. However, for the MBE scenario, we start to see more population requires a higher life-saving cost than the VSL. We believe those indicators will provide some new insight for the policy assessment in the future. Finally, here is the main takeaway of this presentation. First, by examining two well-established climate mitigation scenarios, we found that air quality benefits alone are sufficient to offset the substantial mitigation costs to achieve a low-carbon future in California. Also, we found more air quality benefit from the HBE than the MBE, and more population is receiving net benefit from HBE than the MBE. However, the MBE outperformed the HBE pathway in environmental justice evaluation with a higher yield index value. Such conflicting results signified the importance of including environmental justice analysis when evaluating climate mitigation policies. The yield index adopted in this study proved to be a good indicator when evaluating the progressiveness in environmental justice related policies. I appreciate your attention, and please feel free to ask questions and contact me at the email address here. Thank you.